ruler and subject to continue. And here we came to a standoff, resulted in the end of the parliamentary experiment in Bahrain, and it survived only 2 years, simply because of these disagreement on, are we citizens or subjects? Are you a conqueror, or are you a royal family that have rights, but you have obligations and you have to be accountable? Why couldn't we develop into a state? Why couldn't we why couldn't the Gulf become states like the rest of, however bad the rest of the region is, but or the relation there is that everyone sees themselves as citizens of their states, and they seek to make their rulers accountable. One good factor is the rent. The state, or to run this, the state, to run the government machinery, the ruling families do not need us. They do not need us as people. They can bring in resources. They can bring in legitimacy, resources through the export of oil, legitimacy through their link with Western power, and with their through their geopolitical alliances. So the idea of citizenship becomes quite costly, because it will end up that resources, that the money accrued through export of oil will be made public. We will be made, how people will ask, where do you spend them, how you spend them, questions of budgetary allocations, a question of deciding what type of development, what type of projects, what type of education, etc., would be decided by many other stakeholders than the ruling family. The ruling families in the Gulf not only did not need the people, but from 1973, 74, when we had the oil crisis, or what we call in Arabic the oil boom, the resources became so huge that they simply they had ability to build projects, to build schools, to build infrastructures, and they saw one of the arguments for dissolving the parliament that I was a member in, that discussion in the parliament will reduce the pace of development, because parliamentarians will take time to discuss and debate, and that we don't need. Now, rentier states, of course, they don't work. They don't work as simple autocrats. The Gulf states are not simple autocrats. They are not Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein. They work in different styles. The style of their government is use of what I call, many others also, but vertical segmentation of society. Societies are vertically segmented, and segmented through any number of characteristics that you wish to include: ethnic, tribal, geographic, village-wise, town-wise, vertical segmentation, and then we take we borrow from studies, among other things, in about Italy and elsewhere, the corporative politics, that each segment becomes self-contained. The Shia segment, and don't take the Shia segment. Within the Shia segment, you have villages, separate villages, separate towns, separate families within the Shia. Each segment is also sub-segmented. And each of these segments have, in the best traditions of corporations, they have a patron, and they have they have those who are their clients. But the beautiful thing that I admire my subject when I study ruling families is that they have managed to make the patrons so insecure that they have to compete with each other all the time. They are never secure enough to put demand to the rulers. They are always requesting. And the strategy, the tactic for that was, when you study it, is quite simple. When you look at Abu Dhabi, or you look in Bahrain or Kuwait, it's quite simple. You create this unease that each patron has a competitor of his own, probably the brother, probably even the sister sometimes. That this patron can deliver the same goods. So please, you have to behave. You have to also, not only to behave, to bring more support, to bring more loyalty. The competition between segments in societies have been very important to maintain them. Sometimes the segment expands, so it becomes Shia, all Shia, but sometimes when necessary, you reduce it to some components. Of course, many of you know that the ruling families are Sunnis, but there is a corporation that you will call Sunni. But the Sunni are divided also in so many. Some are the pure tribal who will get anything, and sometimes even the upper echelon of the tribals don't get as many benefits or as many concessions as the lower segments of the Sunnis. We have incidents where you have examples that well-known patrons, well-known leaders of their communities suddenly lost favor, and they lost favor publicly and humiliated and replaced by the brother or by the cousin. And this makes the patronage system unable of pushing demands. Now, you heard me saying, talking about the demand and request. Even the most powerful patrons in the Gulf states cannot put demand. They have, the word for it is request a makrama. Request a gratuity from the king. The king or the ruler or any of these strong members of the ruling family can give away things on, but but he can build a school for you. He can give you a job, but this job, the school, are not entitlement. You cannot demand them. You cannot ask. You can request them. And of course, requesting is most requests are answered. when it comes from a powerful patron. But you are always, whatever power you think you have, you are always unsure what is the decision. So you have to ask. Now, this makes, of course, that the competing demands, the ruling families ask for loyalty. It became, the loyalty became a social imperative and political imperative. You have always, in the past, when you study our history in the 40s, 50s, the ruling families did not ask for loyalty. Your crime was if you expressively became disloyal. You became in the opposition. If you just don't care about it, you don't go to the palace, but you don't agitate. So you can work through your business, and you can prosper. You cannot get benefits from them, you cannot get the makramah from them, but people's life can continue with that. From the independence on, loyalty was imperative. You have to bring it on. You have to now, resources are quite huge. We are not talking about small amounts of money, but they are huge amount of money, and they come into two types, as I said, through the oil, but this is only part of it. Some Gulf states get, like Bahrain, get also rent from being loyal to others. Bahrain gets important support from Saudi Arabia, and direct financial support from Saudi Arabia, and from United Arab Emirates, and from Kuwait. All the Gulf states gets also support because of the strategic positions they have. The Soviet Union has disappeared, but there have been this conflict with Iran that continued for so many years, and then there is the war on terror that continues for many, and the Gulf states, the Gulf rulers, did not lose their possibility to offer services, and for that to get also price for it in terms of investments and support, political support. There's a third element here, that a third component, or a third form of rent that is widespread is corruption. The state resources, the resources are so huge that the possibility of governmental contract, infrastructure projects, armaments procurements, all these have a lot of financial benefits. Now, the ruling family can decide, can give you the right to be corrupt or not. They can select you. The power of the ruling family to select beneficiaries, I cannot be corrupt at will. I have to be granted the right to be corrupt. So I mean, we are not the case, say, in other countries in third world, that corruption goes into the country, it goes into the civil administration, and goes spread itself to society. Here, the corruption is allocated. You are allowed two persons in the same office, two minor employees in the same office. One gets the money, one does not. because if you are not allowed and you take her, you get into trouble, legal trouble. So and so it goes with what scholars call rent seeking. The rent seeking is a possibility, is a privilege that is allocated, and the ruling family can do that, can allocate. It is only one that allocates, which makes the ordinary life of ordinary merchant impossible. Even if one decides not to be loyal or does not care about politics, but he has to pay something. He has to do something in order to get a contract. To get you have stories of people with stories that some of them anecdotes, some of them are investigated cases where general agents of brands lose their agency, and that agency is allocated to either to a sheikh, to a prince, or to another merchant. So the fear that everyone is, the fear and uncertainty that the elite, the patrons, the merchants, the notables, whoever whatever title you give them, they are hostage to the power that the family, ruling family has. Now, sometimes when you look at in Dubai in 1938, in Bahrain in 39, in Kuwait 38 also, struggles of the merchants. They demonstrated, they took actions against the ruling family in order to establish this partnership, musharaka. Where did it go? It disappeared. It disappeared, dissipated, because everyone is afraid of. In the past, when we were before the ruling family became so formidable. In the past, a wise merchant family will have one son in Dubai, one son in Kuwait, one son and they have the same family branch work there. So if the Sheikh of Bahrain is bad to the family, their business continue there. Now, what do we have? We have GCC, we have Gulf Cooperation Council. And the rules are more or less, there is a convergence of rules in the GCC states. So you cannot get away with being disloyal to one sheikh and being loyal to another. Even at the worst case, when at the worst times, like when the Sultan of Oman became angry with the rulers of Abu Dhabi, or when Sheikh of Qatar became angry with the Sheikh of Bahrain, even in these times, what I said continue as so I will go now to Bahrain in order to enter into the subject I am talking about, and inspired by a recent arrival to this meeting. Ala is here, and she wrote a very nice article that that makes the base of the rest of my talk. The King of Bahrain, when he came to power, 1999, he came when the country was in ruin because of 9 years uprising. The 9-year uprising started in 1992, started. Actually, business in Bahrain became in ruin. The economy was bad. The reputation of the ruling family in Bahrain was in the lowest. Suddenly, his father died, and he came to power, and he thought the new king or the new emir at the time thought that now this is an opportunity that he will renew his dynastic, the rule of his dynasty, and improve their conditions. The demands of the uprising were return to 1973 constitution. Simple. And so what he did is he started with a series of political reforms, starting from a promise that we will go back to the constitution, release of all the political prisoners, and number of concessions that were so promising. Personally, I was allowed to come in after 26 years of exile. So I was allowed to come into Bahrain. I was allowed to lecture publicly, and I was able to say what I am saying to you now in Arabic. So the things appeared to be on the reform, and this suited very much the American administration at the time. President Bush used Bahrain as model of a reforming monarch, and he even suggested to Bashar Assad of Syria to learn from the experience in Bahrain, and the Assad of Syria obliged and sent the delegations to Bahrain, and they were making courses there for them in banking system and economic and in the economic sector to learn from Bahrain. So it was, and Bush even visited Bahrain several times just to make that point. One of the reforms he has made was that he promised women political rights, citizenship, women's rights. So it was, for me, it was a fantastic stride towards equality of women and to make us all citizens. In fact, the word citizens, the king has used at the time. Instead of return to the 1950 constitution, the king has authored his own constitution unilaterally, and the constitution was rejected by the main opposition forces, including the religious leftists, etc., Shia and Sunni. And they decided to boycott the political process. He went on, in spite of that, counting that, of course, that because of the corporations that I talk about, that the Shias, not all the Shias boycott, not all the Sunni, not all the leftists. He was able to have allies within each segment. But it continued for a few years, but that did not lead. The problem of legitimacy was really acute. Part of his reform did not come from himself. It came from an international convention, that is the convention CEDAW, Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. That was part of the international community's efforts to make the world better and to introduce, to improve equality between men and women. Bahrain signed that CEDAW, which was part of the reputation, part of the international role of Bahrain, and it suited very much its the king's reputation as reforming monarch. However, he did not think that this signature was not only symbolic. The convention also oblige the contracting states to take certain measures. One of the measures is to improve, update, modernize their family laws, eliminate. The title of the convention is Elimination of Discrimination against Women. So part of the discriminatory aspects of life in Bahrain was family law. Women are accorded lower unfair status and unfair rights in matters of inheritance, in matter of marriage, in matter of ownership, in etc. So the second obligation he has to make is to issue family law. Family law was vehemently opposed by the idea of it. Bahrain, as a government, made a reservation, several reservations on to the CEDAW convention. Like many Muslim countries, they made a reservation on the right of women right of movement, or for women, the right of inheritance, etc. But these minor 4 or 5 reservations went unnoticed because the clerics saw that religious clerics saw this women rights, women family law as part of their own domain, that now it is being taken over by the state. Because codification of family law, it makes all matters of involved marriage and inheritance, etc., custody of children, codified. So judges know exactly, and lawyers, and also litigants, what is to be expected. Okay. The opposition went led by the clerics, but for the law were also different corporations. One of them is led by leftists, some of them are leftist women rights activists. These women rights activists have campaigned since the 70s for the equality of citizenship. They were against the 1973 Constitution because it did not specify that citizens, men and women. It was that Constitution said only citizens, right? So they worked hard on it. Part of the corporatives that were for the law were the Supreme Council of Women, led by the king's own wife, first wife. And so the king was facing, on the one hand, a campaign for, Bahrain was witnessing a campaign for the law and against the law. and both of them were powerful corporations. The clerics, the Shia clerics, led by Sheikh called Isa Qasim, managed to produce on one occasion a demonstration that produced, according to some account, 100,000 people in the street, 1/7 of the population in the street. Many of them women, against the family law. Women activists also demonstrated on that day for the law, but they produced a few hundreds, probably 1,000 or more, near that. It is not that it is unpopular, the law, it was the power of the clerics, where they mobilized the fear that now the state is going to take over not only the women aspects of the law, but will marginalize clerics altogether and marginalize Shia and religious, and we will become all Western, and later things will go even worse. 3 years went on the campaigning between contestation between all these corporations. The king was above all these. The official press was for, his wife was for, the campaign was very effective, covering every aspect of the country, billboards all over the place. Negotiation was underground. We didn't know at the time. A negotiation or a compromise was reached between the king and the leader of the strongest opposition group, that is the clerics, that you end your political boycott to the parliament, and we will exempt you from the family law. A fantastic solution. 60% of Bahraini women are exempted from the family law. Only 40% that are the Sunni who the law now, family law, is applicable. The Shia cleric became happy. The king became happy because he got a better prize. He wanted the constitutional legitimacy, where the women rights activists were the losers, but only for 60%. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I was thinking, now that you said, that they're very good at keeping people on their toes, that I think that the family law for Sunnis in the title actually carries, first part. So you're on your toes, we can always come back and issue the second part of the law, which is the one that will apply to Jafaris. So let's, I think we should just open the floor for questions. Please.
So you began your talk distinguishing good governance versus bad governance, and the concept of citizenship was sort of entwined in that. But then your talk sort of goes on into the sociological reading of Bahraini society and how that's different. So from that, I'm curious as to how citizenship is defined in the Bahraini context, specifically in its constitution and in practice, given the whole patronage network.
How shall we?
Yeah.
You are right. You are right. You are right. The good governance and bad governance touches upon citizenship, and in rentier states, citizenship is not there. The concept is not there, because you are beneficiary in the rentier states, the subject is a beneficiary, the ruler is a donor. So the relation is quite different. That's why I would like to make that distinction in the not to coin the phrase, but to challenge studying rentier governance as a sub-form of governance, because it does not, our criteria for good governance do not apply, even for bad governance, because not everything is corrupt in that. Corrupt is a not of the deal. Yes, but the subject now, when you look at say Kuwait, or look at Abu Dhabi, they have moved from their definition of subject to make it more prominent. It was before. It is people like myself, probably like Jan Luca, will say no, there is subjects, and the state is, the ruling families are treating people as subjects. But now the rulers, at least from 2005, all over the Gulf, from Oman, Kuwait inclusive, and Saudi Arabia included, they have this stripping citizens from their citizenship, simple passports. We've just done. The ultimate example was Sheikh of Qatar. He stripped 5,000-6,000 people from their citizenship one day. He gave them back one day too. I mean, but the idea is that even the passport as a symbol of that citizenship, of that contract, is a gift, is a makrama from the ruler, not your entitlement. The idea of citizenship is connected with entitlement, with things that you ask, you demand. With the Gulf, it is not. So it is not that people lose citizenship, or that you can, of course, lose it if you are a traitor, if you are, but it is a decision is taken by an Amiri decree without due process, and that is emphasizing, and they know that. They could take me to court and say your speech that on that day, they find a number of examples that probably a good judge will use it as a treason. But they didn't even choose that, because it emphasizes for the younger one, for the other third parties, that passport and the title of citizenship is ours to give and ours to take.
I would also add that it's not just the stripping citizenship, but it's also granting citizenship. Bahrain is a good example that, that other second element is just as important as the first. I forgot to say something about that. You actually contribute, I think, monthly to a Safir, the Lebanese newspaper, with op-eds on the Gulf, which I suggest you guys to actually take a look at, because they're, very informative. Please.
I just wonder if is there any written constitution of JCC somewhere where we'll look at the document and lay down, and also whether each Gulf states have a idiosyncrasy, you see, the rulers would decide his own way of running things as such, because it's very confusing. Like as you say, Qatar is with you, the passport of, and whether is there a common passport for the GCC or not?
The last question, there is no common. The GCC, when it was established in 1981, it was established as a political reaction to the revolution in Iran, and trying to an attempt to reduce the political ramifications on the Gulf states. But they failed to come in anywhere near European Union, or even you can travel to the Gulf with your passport, but not with one card. Some can travel, some can obtain ID card, but not everyone can get that. You have to be vetted to get that. But then constitutions, all of them, all the 6 states have constitutions. Regular constitution like the one in Kuwait was one of the good constitutional examples that was studied by Jan Luca. Bahrain has one, 73 and so, or 2002.
Are they common to all?
No, each state has. Saudi Arabia does not have. It has first they have the Quran is our constitution. This is the mantra, but they have something called basic laws, basic law, and so with Qatar they have this basic law. But the problem of constitutions, of course, is it became like a flag, became like the part of paraphernalia of statehood. So when they came to when they became independent, making your own flag, making your own army, having your constitution was of that paraphernalia. And unfortunately, they, as I showed now the example from the family law, they are not respected, not only stripping citizens or granting citizenship, but also in just no one asked the parliament, do we pass the law or a family law or no? The agreement went up and down, and the parliament was given fair complaint.
I know you've been asked this question before, but I was wondering whether you've changed your mind. Do you think the Gulf is facing the end of the oil era? Are we facing globally the end of the oil era? And does that mean the end of the rentier state in the Gulf? Because last time we had this question in January in the LSE, you were kind of convinced that the Saudis have a sovereign wealth fund that can keep them, bankrolled for the next 10, 15 years. But it seems, the latest figures, even the figures released by the U.S. Treasury yesterday, that the Saudis have 170 billion in U.S. Treasury bills. That was way below people's expectations. They thought it was much higher. And there's, there's constantly, no one is certain about how much, but definitely it appears that the perception is that we can no longer depend on rent, or we don't, it's the finiteness of this resource has finally been accepted, and so that, and then what does that mean for the social contract?
Yeah, I know. I still, I wrote a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. I wish they would disappear tomorrow. They will become normal countries. But it is the question is not only the oil is there, of course. Oil is there, and it will not disappear. We still have reserves, fantastic reserves. The Qatari gas fields are immense and cannot be just forgotten. So we will continue for a long time having it. And even alternative energies, the royal families can produce alternative energies also. Solar is possible, the solar is possible, they can, and they do it. Now, the sovereign funds are important for the royal family of Saudi Arabia, even for smaller states like Bahrain. But they are not the only one. They have still potential of more extraction. Now, Mohammed bin Salman is, of course, a dreamer of Saudi Arabia, is a dreamer, but he talks about minerals. Other minerals like diamond, like gold. Of course, there are some mines, gold mines, and that can be so much. But for the foreseeable future that we have, what you, at least I'm not sure about your lifetime, but my lifetime, I think the rentier estate, the families will have these resources, and what they do with them. Now, this is my clarification in medical role, is that they will add to it. The neoliberal structural adjustment programs. Structural adjustment program advocated for ages by IMF, and every IMF delegation that travels to the Kuwait or Bahrain or Saudi Arabia, all of them, World Bank, they all tell them, reduce your social welfare, reduce state expenditures on services, on social services, health, and this they will do. What they will do is reduce their spending on social welfare, but they will continue to be independent of the people, or what can be, the state will continue to be above the.
So you think it's the recent reform is just a form of engineering, like an economic restructuring, to move towards a more kind of a representative taxation type model, but more to just, it's an excuse, and it's engineered because Saudi Arabia has pushed the price down to open the way to have this privatization, to reduce subsidies and to other things, just to kind of loosen up the system a bit and remove that kind of dependency, but not moving to, you know, a normal. So introducing the neoliberal.
My answer to you, yes.
Okay.
In addition, IMF is pushing Saudi Arabia to reduce its subsidies on food, on services, on electricity, etc. And the United Arab Emirates, and not because they don't have oil, because Saudi Arabia, with these subsidies, reduces ability of foreign capital to invest in Saudi Arabia. It is opening the market further for international capital. So we have to see that the families will get more allies, the investors who come in. Now, Mohammed bin Salman has a project. He is a dreamer, he said, a dreamer, but he is going to open the country for 30 million tourists. Who will organize them?
Muslim tourists.
No, but you still have to, Muslim tourists too.
On that point though of Aramco, I mean, Aramco was probably the most efficient running, probably the most independent kind of agency of the state, and that's been the target of the first, IPO project. It just seems, it doesn't make sense. Maybe that is it. Maybe that supports your argument. That the fact is that this isn't about access to capital or foreign capital. It's just a way to, you start with the easiest, low-hanging fruit, Aramco, which is your best one, probably the most efficient and profitable, where people are going to be jumping to buy shares. You don't actually start with the ones where there are actual problems, like transport, infrastructure, other things. Because you don't even open that. You don't even want to. That's a can of worms. So it might actually, support your theory. I don't know.
But I mean, we have here. We don't ask a sociologist to give to speculate on the future. We are very bad on it. From Durkheim until now, we are very bad. But what we see now, what you see now, is that the state, the rentier estate, is strong. It will get rid of some some of its burden. The burden is that you have in Saudi Arabia 29% of 29% of the university graduates who are unemployed. And I will let them. They will let them on their own. They will let them and compete with cheap imported labor that we bring from other places, which again will create tension and create more reasons for the state to be more centralized and for the ruling family to keep its hold on power, not to delegate them. So this is what I see. Of course, others see something else. Others see that there is a competition between the different factions and the ruling families in Bahrain or Saudi Arabia. And some they also see that this competition on these limited resources or more limited resources that become more limited, these competition will end up in an implosion. And this within the ruling families would lead to some change, of course, but can also lead to Al-Qaddafi, a Libyan experience.
Whether you think that rent will continue or will not continue.
I didn't say about that.
No, I mean, whichever way you look at it, there's still a matter of governance behind that, right? So you have an issue of structural governance of either rent coming in or, well, rent will actually die out. So I was actually wondering if, because I mean, studies on the rentier state, I mean, have abundant since the 1990s, basically, right? So you use the expression rentier governance. So I was wondering if you were actually injecting into the debate something more than just this, the state, something like deeper that would help us understand how the system actually works now and how it could work in the context of rent. Fading away.
The rentier state, I mean, the idea that it has died, or at least the studies on it, I think they are premature. We have still survive the example I just shown, but the example from the but when it comes to Aramco, of course, there is a new challenge. The ruling families in the Gulf have resisted. You can see them resisted every advice for the last 15 years from IMF. Delegation, annual delegations, they come with the same formula. And the ruling families have refused them and refused them publicly also. Now they are saying exactly the same thing, like IMF has done. And these are challenges, and they are adjusting to it. Their ability to adjust to these challenges is support my argument that this style of governance will continue. This type of governance for at least for a foreseeable future. What we need probably, this is one idea that has been presented, that even if it is 1 or 5%, we don't know, of Aramco that will be the value of Aramco will be put to the public, even if it's 1 or 2 5. This will give the public a possibility of looking into the accounts. Stock markets all over the world will look into the accounts of. You said it is efficient. We know that from the verified report itself, that verified management. We don't know how correct it is, how close it is, but it's certainly much better run. At least the Aramco compounds are much better run than the Riyadh, the capital in Saudi. But
I didn't say there was such an they were more efficient, but
Sorry.
the most efficient.
My fault. My fault. But the idea is, again, there is a positive. I am not there's some positive consequences on governance, because at least there are there will be some transparency, limited 1%, 5%, but at least we will know how much it is produced. How much is it produced? We don't know exactly how much is sold. We know that at one time it was 140 per barrel, but we don't know even at that time how many millions or how many hundreds of thousands of barrels Sheikh Mohammed or Sheikh Isa or Sheikh Babood, who sell them on his own for whatever price he gets. The official price is 140, but the Sheikh probably sells it for 100, or he's short of cash, because there are these personal allocation of barrels.
So besides the number, so do you know how actually the governance structure there works for right extraction, for instance?
No. Even my dear friend Luciani, Giacomo Luciani, has not come with this account. The ruling families are secretive. They are secretive even with the disputes that go. The bloodiest disputes they get into, like in Kuwait, they have internal security against the National Guard, were face to face. Still, it was their private fight. We didn't know exactly what went on, except that similar in with Abu Dhabi, when they were fighting between the sons of or dispute between the sons of Sheikh Zayed about the loot. We don't know details. We know anecdotes, but you cannot go really.
So it's not affected by the vertical segmentation that you are describing for the political aspect. I mean, there's no.
Disgruntled sheikh or prince could come to me and gives me some research money or give me a travel grant or whatever to show his as me. So but this is only for coincidental, and they never create alliances outside their and because they know that once, like when you depend, that is what the can be removed anytime. You have stories, I mean, as many as you wish. So no one from this notable can believe or imagine that he or she are powerful in themselves, by themselves. They are powerful because they are associated to ex-sheikh or ex-prince, but not on their own. And this is a problem. And put, because if your demands are considered unreasonable, then you are out.
I have one, John. Someone else?
As you were saying, the young people qualified unemployed, and then she says the market will be open. It seems whole Arab, saying Egypt, for instance, there's so much unemployment in Tunisia, and they're sitting on a powder keg, you see. Sooner or later, you see, these young people, less ISIS and all that, will be attracted to some sort of out of And the other thing I would like to know about this is the lifting of the immunity on 9/11. You see some of the participation. What's going to affect, because the Saudis have threatened also to withdraw the sterling they're holding, you see, they are 170 billion or something like that. Can you throw some light on it?
Well, the first thing I wish, at least Karl Marx thought thought about this, your question, but he thought that, I mean, the answer that you have these unemployed, these disenfranchised, etc., have a number of possibilities. One of them is to make a revolution, but only one of them. The other one is to run into a number of things, become alcoholics, become too fundamentalist, become a lot of outways for them. There are, I mean, uses to ventilate their anger, a number of ways. One of them is revolution, but it is not always that. It's not always that possible. Otherwise, it is only you and I, middle class, who can make this. But no more to the point here is that with the Saudi example, they have created, or it can be created, a number of possibilities for semi-employment, like the employing these unemployed in services of protecting purity, protecting morality, etc. In the moral police, Hayat al-Ma'ruf, al-Amr al-Ma'ruf. But even this is now going to be cut, because in order to implement the opening, the economic opening, Saudi must relax for police and reduce their power, the process. So it is difficult to answer more than that. And then your last question was, would Saudi Arabia really, where would they put their money? If they took their money from us, where they would put them in the British banks? I mean, the market here outside the United States is simply unavailable for such large infusion of large capital. Let alone that the Saudis must sell their assets very cheap in order to get them as quickly as they to make that withdrawal a threat or powerful.
But the victim of the 9/11, if they are allowed to sue now to Saudi Arabia, the immunity state, the Congress is thinking of passing the.
They did pass it. They did pass it. The White House decided might block it. If Trump come, probably he will sign it. But they might come into legal. This is a legal thing. The courts might decide that, like the Iranian $2.5 billion, $2.5 billion for Saudi, okay. But the arrangement, the payment that Iranian would pay for American victims of terrorist acts were $2.5 million or something. The similar amount might be decided, or at least a ceiling for that, and this can be tolerated in the best tradition of compromise.
Thank you, Abdulhadi. I think that your presentation tonight, again, closing the series of 2016, which was on governance and constitution, sheds light on the fact that we can actually speak about governance without referring to the constitutions, which is what I actually asked him, because when we first engaged in the conversation on how to actually speak about governance in Bahrain, his first instinct was to go to the constitution, and I somehow forced him to be more a sociologist, be more like yourself, and actually read how would you describe governance without having recourse to the constitution. Now that's an exercise that you shared with us, and thank you for doing so, for engaging with it so vividly. But it also gives us, students of governance, a sense that the approach to governance and constitution can actually be quite tricky. So if we were to only look at the Bahraini constitution, we would probably get a very different or superficial sense of how governance actually works. There's a wealth of things that could be said about the constitution even in Bahrain, but I think it's useful for us to somehow close on this note that there are these interactions between forms of governance that are not mirrored in formal constitutions, and I think it's something that we should keep in mind, not just for Bahrain, but in general for, even if we think at our various institutions where we work, we have some governance documents, and then there's, real governance. So, at home, or even in a family, right? We have family rules, and then there's, the governance that works there. So I think that's a good start of a discussion that we'll probably bring forward and explore more how then constitution then affect, this ways of governance that we have. So thank you for closing, but also opening us for future, series and future events. So thank you all. Thanks to the technical support, to the direction for the governance program, to the governance staff, to all those who participate in the various workshops, the faculty, non-faculty, students. There's soon left, but so please keep in touch with us, and look forward to having you in a next event. Thank you very much, and again, please join me in thanking Abdulhadi for